live, but I'm not seeing it. There it is. Okay. Okay, we're on. All right, so
All right.
oh yes, you did have some questions or some things that came up in the last little while, so let's open it
Yeah.
up. All right, so let's see what we got. You've got a game from the tournament. F4, F5 play on the Sicilian, great. Then the question about the sack on E6 related to it, and then 2 more games. Okay, so we've got 3 games to look at, and some questions about
Yeah, well,
handling
two
the
two of
Sicilian.
them are just ridiculous. Just basically showing you stuff that happens to me. I don't know when I suppose when nervous. I don't know, but I mean, two of them are just ridiculous blunders. The one of the F4 F5 thing, that
Mm-hmm.
one is one that I'm really interested in
Okay,
because that one is me getting crushed by something that I don't basically don't even know what hit me. Like,
fair enough. Okay. All right. Let's go here. Go like this. So if I go
but if
here.
you want, we can start with the other two because actually the other two are like very short and
Very short.
I don't know if there's
Easy.
much instructive value there. I mean, it's more to show you like the kinds of blunders that I make sometimes than anything else. But maybe you have like a tip on how to avoid like the psychological aspect that leads to these blunders, which I try to explain there with my comments.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so one of these is from the 17th against Juan. Okay, I don't necessarily see it in your history, so I'll just load it from the PGN.
Oh yeah, this is from tournament, but tournament over the board. I mean, it's
Oh,
just
from over
this
the
is the over
board.
the board
Okay,
tournament. And yeah,
nice. All right, I'm black. I lost over the board rapid game. Okay, great. Okay, so we know that you are black. Bishop c4, knight over e6, a3 to hide the bishop further away. Yeah. So, any thoughts about this a3 move by white?
yeah. Wait, let me pull up the game on my side.
Sure.
1 second. Um, here it was Rivas. Okay. So yeah, when I saw a3, I mean, I knew that they were just doing that so they could attack the bishop on a2. I wasn't particularly worried about that move. I mean, I thought, yeah, I play b5 anyway. Like, I mean, there's no loss of anything in doing that. I like basically about this opening, I don't know much except that like basically what I know about it is summed up by I know b5 is an idea, like you do play b5 there, and you know usually it comes with a tempo on the bishop, so great. And then I know that you have to be mindful of the bishop e6 sack, but that's
Mm-hmm.
partly what I wanted to ask you about because I don't know like to what extent you have to worry about that and when can you actually allow it because not being able to realize when to allow it and when to do something else has also led to me playing these positions completely wrong, I think. But
Right.
yeah, a3 I wasn't concerned about. I thought that maybe if they play, I don't know, like if they play like for instance a4, that you know would deter me from playing b5 in the first place. So
Mm-hmm.
that it has happened in my games, and I mean it's not like I particularly mind it, but I mean you have to look for a way around that or do something else.
Yeah.
But a3, I mean, it's like basically a nothing move.
Okay. So they're tucking the bishop further away to avoid something like knight d7, knight c5 at some point, trading the piece off. So they're valuing that bishop, but the cost is they're spending a tempo, right? Because they could have retreated to b3 without spending a move on the a-pawn. So they're spending a tempo, a little bit of their time lead. White starts out with a development lead in the knight, so they're giving up some of their time lead to keep that bishop. And so it's just the thing I like to keep track of in opening is like what's the good or bad thing of the different moves, or what's my opponent's argument or my argument, right? So they're giving me back a little bit of time, but they're really keeping that bishop. And so now I have to figure out how do I develop all my pieces without allowing the e6 sack, right? I've got this little breathing room of a tempo because they spent a move on a3. So I got like a little bit more of a tempo, but I'm going to want to develop in a way where I'm safe against the e6 sack. Knight d7, knight c5 is not going to be a good way to cover the e6 point here. Because compared to with their bishop on b3, you don't have the extra idea of taking the bishop. So they've already played moves that make knight c5 less good. So if you then went for a normal plan when it's less good, it sort of makes less sense here. The other thing is they could play b4 at some point with the pawn. Very horrible for their c-file. But if they play it at the right time, and you're forced to play a move like knight d7, then they can sack on e6 anyway. Right? So knight c5 doesn't really stop the e6 sacrifice. If it's a really good sacrifice, they'll just play b4 and then play the e6 sacrifice. So we can kind of reason that knight d7 to c5 is not going to be your best option. I would guess that your best option is going to be to play some version of a knight c6 variation, where you can trade the knight on d4 to reduce the pressure on e6. And I don't know if you know this, but you don't have to trade on d4 to stop bishop e6. Sometimes you can let them play bishop e6 and then play knight takes d4, and it refutes the sacrifice once the sacrifice is already started. Do you see what I mean?
So you mean like putting a knight on c6, and then if they go for the sacrifice, then after they take bishop e6, then you take the knight, and so like
right
that way.
And then they might still lose a piece, right? So sometimes there are some positions where you don't want to trade on d4 because their queen or their bishop is going to be good on that square. But just having your knight on c6 in contact with their knight on d4 often refutes the e6 sacrifices, because if they go bishop e6, you play knight d4 as sort of an in-between move. Okay. So that would be my first take on seeing a3. The other thing I would say is against a3 or a4, you could think about maybe playing knight takes e4, knight takes e4, d5. Because they're giving you sort of a tempo kind of move, a3 or a4. Knight takes e4 with the center fork trick, removes their center in kind of a nice way. The problem with knight takes e4 in general is potentially development for black, right? So on move 7, I used to castle as white instead of retreating the bishop. The oldest main line would be to play bishop b3 right away for white, right? Your opponent played a3. I used to castle in that position. And my thinking was if black plays knight e4, d5, bishop d3, pawn takes knight, bishop takes pawn, they've simplified me out into a French position with a very acceptable structure for black. But their development is terrible, right? Like, I've got already 3 tempi of development, and there's the question of how they develop the queen side with the pressure on b7. So they're in danger of really falling behind on development pretty badly, or struggling because of the development problem, right? So if you know you're going to be way behind on development, it doesn't really make you want to play knight takes e4 because you're opening up the game. But if white gives back some of the development lead with moves like a3 or a4, then I would start thinking, maybe I could afford to play knight takes e4, simplify the center, get rid of that pressure. And since they've played a3 or a4, I'm maybe safer in that position after we trade. Just a way of thinking about the a3 position and, what are the pluses and minuses of each move. So I like what you do. You go b5, bishop a2, bishop e7, castles, queen c7, and knight c6. Makes sense. Bishop e3 from your opponent. And now you castle. King h1. All logical moves. Bishop d7. Okay. So they play king h1. You said this move gave you the idea that they might want to go g4. Right?
Yeah, I thought they would. They were freeing like the G1 square for the rook or something. Like, you know, they were tugging the king away so they could try to start an attack on same side castling there.
Yeah. So I'll say anytime white's f pawn goes to f4, so it can't go to f3, your bishop's going to be amazing on b7 if it can go there. And if they're going to play g4, your bishop will be even more amazing on b7. So given everything we see so far, putting the bishop on d7 looks like a major mistake compared to b7. So let's...
Yeah, here is what part of what I'm telling you that I don't know when I can put it actually on b7. Like, for instance, here I thought if I go bishop b7, then they actually, it seems like they actually do have the sack. But yeah, here are we? No, we are not in the situation where I can. Yeah, wait. Are we in the situation where I can take on d4, like you said?
Yes.
Like bishop e6, and I could take on d4, right?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
This is exactly that situation.
I didn't know that. Yeah, exactly. Because I thought, you know, bishop e7, bishop e6, fe6, knight e6, the forks queen and rook. I'm dead basically.
So first of all, if you're castled,
yeah, that's as far as I went.
First of all, Francisco, if you were castled, you're not dead in that position. Even if you give them the rook with knight e6. You could play, let's say, queen d7, knight takes f8, rook takes f8. It's two pieces against rook and two pawns. In an endgame, white would probably be a bit ahead. In a middle game, it's anybody's game here. Because, you know, you've got four minor pieces on great squares, plenty of chances, in particular, to make the bishop on b7 good, play against e4 and g2. And just go after light squares because your opponent doesn't have a light squared bishop. So I would emphasize trying to attack the light squares and then maybe even the king side. Once you know, if you can break through e4, then the king side would be next. And it just looks like a playable position. Okay? But perhaps even more relevantly for you and wondering about, well, actually both of these things are relevant for you. When is bishop e6 good or not, right? So first of all, sometimes you can give them the exchange and it's still very playable. But secondly, it's completely refuted here by knight d4. This is exactly the kind of position where knight d4, white's lost. I mean, they can keep playing because it's a rapid game. But, I mean, you know, at this point, you know, you're winning. You're winning. Yeah. Now, instead of bishop e6, they could go knight e6. You take, they take with the bishop, check, king h8. If your king were still on e8, sometimes even knight e6 is viable because the bishop on e6 could keep your king from castling kingside or queenside. Could be a very complicated and interesting position. But here you tuck your king on h8 and white doesn't have enough compensation for the piece. Two pawns, you know, your d6 pawn is weak. It's not nothing. I mean, you shouldn't expect to win 100% from here. But you have the advantage, I would say. So on this one, I'll say you're not winning, but you've got a clean advantage. So as far as I can tell, there's nothing wrong with bishop b7. And then I guess the next question for you is, you know, how would the position play out with bishop b7 if they don't sack, right? Like, how much better would it be than the bishop d7 position you got in the game? I think that would be the next relevant question here. So let's try playing f5 for white like in the game. I'm going to trade on
bishop b7.
Yeah, I'm going to play bishop b7 instead of d7, but then I'm going to play f5 like in the game for white, just to get a feeling for how much difference does it make. We expect it'll be a big difference. Right. Let's have a look. I will try knight takes knight. I think they'll take with the queen to defend the e-pawn. Now my e6 pawn is not defended, right? Because my bishop's on b7, not d7. So I'm about to lose control of some light squares here probably, but let's see how bad it is. I'll play e5, basically because I feel like I have to. They'll play queen to d3, I think.
Wait, I'll stop you right there. So,
Yeah.
wait a second. You said you feel like you have to.
Mm-hmm.
So, what happens if ef5 here?
Okay, yeah, I could play ef5. Then I think white would take with the rook. And that's also a playable position. You can do that if you want.
Oh, okay. No,
Yeah.
because I thought that maybe you were like, no, that's impossible or something.
Yeah,
And then I wanted to know
not
why, because,
impossible.
there's a kind of wrong. Okay, because there's a kind of point where I make always the wrong decision. Like it's just mathematical. Like if there are two choices, push or take, I always choose the one that the engine frowns upon.
Yeah.
Like it's just I don't know.
Well, here I think that the difference on the engine will be smaller, but it will prefer e5. E takes f5, I think the white rook is pretty happy on f5.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's got some chances to pressure f7. It's helping to control the d5 square.
Maybe they can double up or something, right?
Right, and they'll double up. It gives a square for the a1 rook. Now, I mean, it's not without benefits for you, because you can put a rook on e8 and try and pressure the e4 pawn some, right? I just think there's enough pressure on f7. I'm having a hard time seeing when you could play knight takes e4 without dropping f7. So I don't quite see it. So I would go e5. This means long term I'm open to a huge pawn storm, right? But short term there's no real pressure from the white pieces. So white will play queen d3 to keep the e pawn defended.
Wait, what does it mean that you are open to a pawn storm?
Well, because I let white have
Because
this
there's
space
a lock
advantage
center?
from f5, and because the center is locked at the moment.
Uh-huh.
If I don't do anything for a while, eventually white will play g4, g5. And if they get to a pawn to g5, I'll usually be losing. Because they'll get control of d5 for their pieces when my knight has to run away, and they'll be in position to play moves like g6 or f6, breaking my king. So I understand when I play e5 that if I don't play well, g4, g5 could eventually beat me here. So I'm going to have to do something interesting before that happens, I guess. You know?
Okay.
So they have to go queen d3 to keep the pawn defended on e4 after we play e5. And now my main plan is to play d5, right? That's my main idea here. So I've got two options. I can play rook d8 immediately, preparing d5. Or I can play this sort of sneaky move rook c8 first, which is my inclination is to play rook c8 first.
What's sneaky about rook g8?
I'm playing rook c8 so that at some point when your knight on c3 captures on d5, I can play queen takes c2.
Ah, okay.
So I'm restraining that piece.
Okay. So rook ac8, right?
Yeah, I play rook ac8. Maybe white would play rook ac1 to stop my plan. But then I would guess that my rook is slightly better placed than theirs, so I'm happy to make that trade of rook moves. So let's go rook ac8, rook ac1 maybe. Now, what do I want to do next? I can either play rook fd8 or play queen b8 to a8.
Okay, yeah, both make sense. Okay, let's say you start with rook fd8.
Rook fd8. Yeah, I don't see white having time to start a pawn storm, Francisco. I think white just has to fight over the center with black here.
Okay, and if they had the time, like let's say, I don't know, you play a couple of waiting moves with black, then how would they go about it? Because I mean, if they play g4 right away, you could just take it with the knight.
Yeah, they would probably play h3. And then,
h3, yeah, of course.
Let's say I sit around. It's hard for me to play really dumb moves that just sit around. I'll go back rook to e8. Like I'm just wasting my time and I can't pick my plan.
Yeah, okay.
And then I'll play g4 for white. Now, this looks scary. That said, there's a good chance that black has a tactic with just knight takes e4, right? I mean, rook d8, g5, knight takes e4, knight takes e4, d5, and then when the knight moves d4 check, I mean, you know, there's a chance it still doesn't work for white. It's pretty tricky to set it up. They might need to also play king h2 before they move the g pawn. They might have to play h3, king h2, and then g4. Yeah. But
Okay.
yeah, you can play rook fd8. The other thing you can do is you can play this queen b8 move. The idea is to go queen a8, and the e pawn is really hard to defend. So at some point here, it feels like white's just going to have to plop a piece on d5 and trade a bunch of pieces. I don't really see them having time for a mating attack here because, I mean, you haven't wasted any time. I just don't see the time for white to do it. Yeah. So. Yeah, I think at this point I'd expect something like knight d5, and we trade a couple times. And then maybe queen
So
a8.
if knight d5 happened, would you trade first with the knight or with the bishop?
It doesn't seem like it makes a difference. Like you're going to have to trade all the pieces. But
okay.
I guess you could trade first with... Yeah, I'm not sure it makes any difference. Let me look. Knight d5.
Because I mean, part of me would like to capture there with a bishop. I mean, with a knight. But on the other hand, the knight seems like basically the only defender on the king side.
Right, like if white took e takes and tried to keep a piece on the board, then your bishop on b7 is not great, but the bishop on a2 is equally dumb. Yeah, I don't know. Hard to say. Maybe trade with the bishop first, because it really does nothing if they don't trade the second piece. But
Okay.
I still think they'll trade with their bishop. They won't want to block it in with ed5, so you end up trading all the pieces. They take on d5 with the queen, and now I play the move queen a8. And this looks a little like a famously bad endgame where the d6 pawn is bad and the d5 square is weak, and white can attack the d pawn. But because the e pawn is sensitive, they don't have as many options, right? Like if they go rook d1, we have queen takes d5, rook takes d5, rook c4, and we just win the e pawn right away. And these positions are famously bad when white has a knight on d5, but instead white has a bishop that can't go to d5, so looks more playable. They probably trade queens on a8. Play rook d1. Play rook fc8. Yeah, it seems okay. Seems like a normal endgame. Or they could play c4, maybe a smart move. And you just play rook c8, also a smart move. If you traded, they could double rooks on the c file. That would be a little worse for black, but you just go rook fc8, and they take on b5, and you take on b5. Just a normal endgame. Looks fine. So, yeah, I'm not really making any mistakes for anybody, so no big advantage for either side. In this kind of position. Pretty standard. So now let's see it with the bishop on d7, like in the game. So in the game, the bishop goes to d7, your opponent plays f5, and you play e5, and you say that it's a losing move.
Yeah, I mean, after I checked with the computer, at the moment I had no idea.
Okay. So let's see what your options are. They play e6. Sorry, they play f5. e6 is attacked 3 times. So you have to do something about it. So your choices are trade on f5, push e5, or trade on d4. You know what I think you might be able to do here with the bishop on d7 is you might be able to take on f5 because they won't be able to take with the rook. So maybe you could play knight d4, queen or bishop d4, I don't know which. E takes f5, e takes f5, and then that position looks fine, right? Because the f5 pawn's not so amazing. You have the isolated pawn on d6 that's a little bit backwards, but I think, you know, you just put your rooks on c8 and e8. Don't put them on d8 to defend the pawn. Just put them on the open files to attack c2 or to attack on the e file. Play like rook fe8. You can always put your bishop on c6. And it looks fine. Looks fine. Maybe that was the best option in this case, was to use the bishop on d7 to trade on f5 where they have to take back with their pawn. And maybe it's not so bad. Maybe it's a tiny advantage for white. Well, it looks okay. Looks fine. Looks fine. Okay, so you play e5. Now they keep all the pieces, and at the moment they've got control over d5. When you don't know what to do, bring the rook to the c file. Yep. You can also do that when you know what to do. Bishop here, takes, knight d5, queen d8, knight g3. Big advantage for white. f6, classic pawn sack, knight h5. Yeah. And now the disaster's just rolling for white, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, after I played the bishop back, I instantly realized, well, I don't know if instantly, but I mean, before my opponent played their move, I already realized what was coming. I was like, oh, shoot. What have I done?
But if you didn't play it, they would have played knight h5 next, right? And it would have been similarly.
Yeah. It was going to be. I mean, the computer already gives them as winning already.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So yeah. So definitely true. You reacted to f5 in the wrong way, I guess, so to speak. It's funny that if your bishop were on b7, then I think this is okay. Although, notice it's important that you trade the knight on c6 before you play e5 here. Because otherwise the knight on c6 is just kind of in your way. It's not a great piece here, right? You really want to trade that knight so that it's...
Yeah, because otherwise if you take directly on f5, maybe they can take with the knight, right?
Yeah. But also, if you're going to play e5, it's better to trade the knight first and then play e5, because the knight on c6 is blocking your rook or queen on the c file. The knight on c6 is keeping you from putting a bishop on b7 or c6 and controlling d5 and e4. So the knight on c6 is just kind of in your way in a lot of these Sicilian positions. It was very good that you put it there, by the way, because that's how you stop the e6 sacrifices, right? But there comes a point where it's time to trade it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and when you play e5, you saw their knight eventually goes through e2 to g3 to h5 and joins the kingside attack. And your knight sits on c6 kind of like a dummy. Doesn't know where to go next.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So very instructive game.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks a lot for all the tips. That was very instructive.
And now let's see these other ones.
Those are going to either make you cry or laugh. I don't know which.
Uh-huh.
I don't know which first. So be warned.
I'm ready
Look at
for
them. I
it.
mean, there's not much to analyze. It's more like a psychological thing. I mean, if you have any psychological tips, I mean, like, but basically, what it is from the purely objective perspective of the game. I mean, yeah, I understood the mistakes immediately after making them.
All right, I'm black. I lost over the board game where I shot myself in the foot due to the exhilaration of seeing a tactic, looking to make it work instead of refuting it. By which you mean looking for ways for your opponent to get out of it, right? You just wanted it to work. You didn't want
Exactly. Yeah.
You didn't want to double check or
then and I literally my heart was racing and I couldn't see anything. Like I was like yeah, this has to work. And then I was like, okay, let me check that it works. And my check of it works was like going over the same line again and going
yeah.
like, yeah,
I go like,
it's
yeah.
so good,
Yeah.
I'm a genius.
Yep. So I do this thing, and I I've mentioned this in lessons with other students in the past. So some people who've been around the channel for a long time will know this, but I do this thing where when I think I see something winning, I put myself in my opponent's shoes and I look desperately for a way out. Like the way I would if I were losing, right? If I were on the other side of the table and suddenly I noticed, oh my gosh, my opponent has this move. I don't resign when I see that. I look like just so hard. Like, is there no way out? Is there no resources? Is there no way to keep the game alive? Like know something, and so basically I just flip the board in my head, so to speak, or I flip the positions and I start really like wishing and hoping and working from my opponent's perspective. Obviously, I want to be a genius and have a great tactic, right? But this is something that I guess that's become a part of my process. Obviously, I'm mostly a classical player, so I always have time to do this. If I see a winning move, I'm allowed to spend just ages double checking because if it wins, like I'll win for sure, So I've gotten used to this thing where I throw myself onto their side of the story and I just use desperation, creativity, like everything I can to try and save the game in my head. And yeah, that's to some extent a useful thing for you to do when you see winning ideas. You can't do it for very long in this format, but at least when you say I'm going to double check it, instead of like I'm going to double check it and you're seeing it from your perspective and you're like, yep, everything looks good. Your double check is like, maybe you could just replace the words let me double check it with let me refute it or something like that, right? And so it's like your perspective is you're trying to find the way out. Okay. This happens to me all the time. I can't refute my moves, and I don't know if there's any real fix to this. At the very least, a shrink. So I'm not an overall shrink, but I'm a chess shrink. So that's
all right.
That's a plausible tool you can use against it. Is like really trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes instead of yours, and see if that makes you
sense. Yeah, because that's when we actually find this stuff. Like when you have no choice but to find something.
Yeah. Gets castled. Okay. Knight takes e4. You calculated it. Cool. Bishop e7. Knight c3. Queen g4. Nice calculation. Queen e7. Queen g7. Calculated this line. Didn't like it. And that saved me from going astray. For one more move. Well, good job. That's a great calculation. Look. Also, Francisco, it's important you believe in yourself. You could have said knight e4. I'm a genius. But you double checked, right? You double-checked, and you did refute one of your ideas here. You refuted knight e4 with a very unusual move here, queen g4. That's nice. Very nice find. So
Yeah, you know the funniest part is that the later I checked with the engine, and on that move, if I had allowed that sequence, it
yeah.
says black is better. Of course, I wouldn't enter those waters, even knowing that supposedly black is better, right? But the thing is, it says black is better. But I said like no, I don't want to go there, and then I went afterwards when it just loses a queen at the very least. so,
How's black better after
so yeah.
queen g4, queen g7?
I don't remember. I mean, but yeah, the computer was like black slightly better or something like that.
What?
It's not,
That's
but
weird.
yeah. But it's true that the calculation was accurate because yeah, when I plugged it into the engine, that is the line indeed.
Oh my
but
gosh.
yeah,
Okay, so basically you can play queen f8 here instead of moving your rook. And because white hasn't yet recaptured their piece on c3, they have to take the time to trade queens, and then the time to recapture the knight, and then you get this endgame, and you're fine. You know, like the lead in development doesn't matter as much in this endgame, and white structure is a little bit worse than yours. Amazing, queen f8. Well, that's cool. I've never seen that move before in my life. Okay, but anyway, the point is, you have the chops to occasionally refute yourself, right? You were worried that you never ever refute yourself, but there you did. You saw an idea and you refuted it, so to speak, with queen g4.
yeah, you're right.
All right, let's keep going. Rook e1. Now you go for it. Now my heart was racing. I barely took a moment to check my calculation. Just too excited.
Yeah, I was like, now I'm good to go because now I'm castled. Now it's good to go. I like rechecked, but this recheck was obviously like a fake recheck because I mean I missed bishop h7 check. So.
Oh! Ow! Oh my god. Oh, that's the end.
So yeah, then I got hit by it, and I was like, well, yeah. I mean, after I put it there in the PGN, at which point I realized it, but I realized it, and then I was just crossing my fingers. But yeah, my opponent did find it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Ay, ay, ay. Okay.
yeah.
So double checking
Yeah,
our things somehow or refuting our things. Yeah, you were so excited. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say this. I often calculate 94 in my games as black. And very often it's kind of risky because I haven't finished my development. But I'm always like so excited. Like, I could just cut through it all and, you know, be fine, be good. But here's another refutation, bishop h7. Well, I'll just add it to my warning list for myself. Things to watch out for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which other refutations of that do you know, by the way, if you can remember them like off the top of your head right now?
Yeah, okay. So sometimes I have like a knight on d7 already. So let me show an example of this. Maybe something like h6, bishop h4, knight bd7. I don't know. We need to give.
Wait, starting from where?
Sorry. Like after rook e1. Okay. Well, actually, let me go back instead. Let's go to move 8, white castles.
Let me pull it up. Wagner was over here. So here, white castles. Okay.
White castles. I'll play knight bd7 instead of castling for you.
Okay.
Then rook e1 for white, and then knight e4. Here, there's knight takes e4, bishop takes g5, knight takes d6. That's another thing, is sometimes I'm hanging my d6 pawn.
Whoa. Okay.
When I do this.
Okay.
And then...
Wait, but how is that good for white? Like, I mean...
Well, the
you move a king
materials,
somewhere, and then what happens?
the materials equal, and Black's king is on the run.
Wait. What? Material is equal. Okay, I don't know how to count. Let me see.
Yeah.
94. We capture the knight. Here. I mean, they capture. Oh yeah, they capture the knight. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that's the thing to bear in mind
They
is like
capture the pawn over there.
94, the dream scenario is like you win a pawn while spending time and energy, right? So like the upside is not very high on 94, and then often it just loses pretty brutally. And sometimes it's just a little bit bad. Another thing that's happened to me sometimes with 94 would be, let's say he castles, you castle, rook e1, knight e4, bishop e7.
Wait, that's a game.
Knight c3. Yeah, I'm following the game. Okay, now instead of bishop h7 check,
Okay.
sometimes even bishop takes d8, knight takes d1, bishop e7. Even that is sometimes good enough for white.
Mm-hmm.
It depends. Sometimes it's good enough, sometimes it isn't. Depends how good knight b2 is in some scenarios. But sometimes, you make all these trades and then they just let you make all the trades, save their dark squared bishop, and the position's not that good for black sometimes, even then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I've gotten excited about 94 many times, but I've rarely had it work out for me. I don't think I've won many games using this trick.
Yeah, I mean, also you're facing very, very strong opponents.
Right.
Unlike me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's my... All right, I have to open the last game here.
Okay. Yeah, this one. Be prepared. This is like 100 elo chess. Yeah.
I'm always ready for it. All right, let's go for another game
All
here.
right.
Ba-dum, ba-bum, bum, bum. Okay, I was white. I won despite my terrible mistake. This extract from a game showcases my inability to see the board sometimes. I'd like to think that with a 2D board I would have seen this, but can't guarantee it. Oh, sorry. And now you're white, so we'll flip it around for folks. C5. I know this is a mistake and studied a bit of its punishment. In fact, the first time I saw this move, I already smelled that it was a mistake, and then when checking with the computer, realized I was right. It's funny that my opponent should play it yesterday of all days, as I had just looked up how to punish it. Whoa! Don't get too excited. Hey, who are you to tell someone else not to get too excited?
Yeah.
I'm allowed to be excited too, We can both be excited. All right, trade.
All right.
Trade. Whoa, bishop f2. Wait, why can't you take it?
I can't take it. That's the funny part.
No.
I can't take it. I literally didn't see the bishop on c1, man. Like,
Okay.
I literally didn't see it. I was like, okay, what is this bishop f2 nonsense? I can take, right? And then I was calculating, like, okay, he goes 95 check. I can just take the knight, defense my queen. All right, that's all good. But then I was like, oh, he goes 94 check. And then, like, my best bet is to just take the knight and get the 3 pieces. So I was like, wow, like this is I missed this stuff. I have to play King f1, and then I played King f1 because I just was completely neglecting my bishop on c1. Like I just didn't see it. And after the game, like I said there, there was this guy to my further embarrassment, because at that point I had already realized that that I had made a mistake by not taking. The guy comes to me and says like, "Usted, ¿por qué no captura el alfil?" He said like, "Why didn't
Yeah.
you capture the bishop?" And he was like very serious about it,
Yeah.
like expecting that he was talking to someone who knew something.
Who knew that you were going to reveal something interesting to
And
him?
I was like, "I didn't see the bishop, man."
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should have said something like, "I didn't know how the king moves," or something like that, you know? Let him know who he's talking to. I didn't know the king could move diagonally. No sabía que rey podría capturar en un diagonal.
Oh, very good, very good. Good Spanish. Yeah.
All right.
It was ridiculous.
Foos has a good question, which is, Foos says, my one question would be, how much time did you spend on King F1 versus King F2?
Well, I mean, my whole time was spent on King F2, basically.
Yeah.
Like King F1, I basically was like, King F2 is horrible. King F1, I'm down a pawn and had to move my king, so I'm obviously worse. But I can at least make a comeback potentially with all these pieces on the board, as opposed to taking the bishop. And since I wasn't seeing the bishop on c1
Yeah.
in my head, taking the bishop meant knight g4, queen g4, bishop g4, and bishop g4. Like I had to get the three pieces for the queen and be like playing that position. Which seemed like maybe was still playable, but I mean, like I didn't want to go there, so I was like, okay, king of one.
Yeah. So I'll just say, normally, Francisco, three pieces against a queen, you should go for it. Pieces are amazing, man. Three pieces, a bishop pair is part of them, right?
Yeah, a lot of times I do prefer the pieces. Yeah, and I have done that before.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel comfortable about it in this particular position. I don't know.
The scary thing here is they might have queen h4 check at the end, attacking your king and bishop, and that might be very awkward. Other than that move, though, in general, it's good to know that you sometimes have the courage to take the pieces. A lot of people they're too scared to do it. Even if they know that three pieces are better than a queen, they're like, I don't really believe it. I can't do it. It's too confusing. But you should believe in yourself. Pieces are great. They'll cover like every square. You just have to keep them defended. The queen's superpower is double attacks. Double attacks. If you can control that, all good. So, okay. So here we get this remarkable mistake, which earned you the visit from the serious gentleman. Very polite. He usteded you.
Yeah.
Is usted rare now, or is it normal, or?
I mean, it's normal if you're talking to like I don't know, an elderly man or your doctor or something, but it's used in formal situations. In general, you don't refer with usted to someone.
But if you just meet a new person at the chess club and ask them if they want to play a game and they're your age, you wouldn't say usted.
No, I would say too.
Okay. All right, so we get king f1, knight c6. Now you take it. Oh.
Yeah, and I realized it. Then I was like, oh man, how did I miss this? And I was lucky that they just allowed me. They were like, he doesn't take the bishop, he's not going to take the bishop. So yeah.
You felt like shaking your head just to let people around you know.
Yeah, I was like, man, like this is so terrible. I mean, I was feeling embarrassed, but apart from that, I was feeling like more embarrassed about making the mistake, and also about publicly making the mistake.
Right.
I was like, oh man. Like,
Now,
so
Francisco, in 2 weeks, we're going to publicly make some mistakes in this tournament.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
That's true.
Now, at the
true.
time, our goal is not going to be to let everybody know that we're a genius and actually we realized the mistake, etc. And no acting. Our goal is to save any half point or any point we can anyway. It's just to scrap. Okay? So you just get any point you can. Doesn't matter how pretty or ugly it was. You just put everything you have into playing the game. Don't waste your time thinking about mistakes earlier in the game. You've got the position you've got left with the pieces you've got left, and we're just going to maximize our results. One of the main ways we're going to maximize our results is by just sticking in it and letting our opponents make mistakes. There's all kinds of positions that may look completely hopeless, and if you just sit around and don't hang any more pieces, your opponents will hang pieces, and suddenly you'll get the game back. And I've played thousands of games in my life at queen odds and queen, rook, and bishop odds and rook, bishop, knight odds, and etc., etc., etc. And of course, when I looked at my position, it looked hopeless. Sometimes I've got one knight and I'm just going knight f8, knight e6, knight f8, knight e6, and it's next to my king and I've got one or two pawns and I'm just moving my knight back and forth. And eventually they come and hang all their pieces to my one knight and king. So the key is I don't move my knight forward, I don't go knight d4 and let them just capture my knight, right? I hold tight with what I have. If they attack my knight on e6, I move it to f8. If they attack it on f8, I move it to d7. As long as I can, I just make it a little harder till they get frustrated and they hang everything. Sí. Y usted tienes que hacer eso también.
All right.
That's all you got to do. It can be ugly. But in the end, the score will be beautiful. So let's not worry about embarrassment and such weak emotions. We'll just play. All right. So next question I have for you is I want to schedule a tournament for you. 7 rounds.
Yeah, you said that. Yeah, I told you, basically I'm free almost whenever. So yeah. Well, whatever time you feel like it's a good time, we can do it.
Okay. I think this week, Thursday or Friday, would be a good time. Because then we have a whole other week before your tournament, so we can practice a little bit more, we can relax, and we at least get one tournament under our belts. So I'd like to try and arrange that for you this Thursday or Friday, if that seems okay.
Yeah, that's okay. But are you able to comment on it and stuff? Because I didn't watch the whole stream, but I watched a fragment of your stream with Martin. And you said there that you were busy on Thursday and Friday, I believe.
Yep. I won't be able to watch the whole thing if we schedule it for Thursday or Friday, but it'll be good training for you without me.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because I would like you to comment on the games if possible, so that, I can learn something about them too.
Mm-hmm. I can play over them later and send you some notes.
All right, that's good.
But you're playing.
Yeah, or if I have any doubts, I can again send you which game I want to review, and we can see it the next lesson. So it's all good. Yeah.
But you're playing a fair number of games. I'm not going to see every game you play over this whole month, right? You're playing practice games, and I'm not always there. And this will be very good practice. And in particular, I'll have some questions for you after this tournament about did you get tired, or if you had a game where you blundered, did you play worse the next game? It's not going to be so much about in this variation of the French defense, you didn't use this plan. That's not so much what I'm interested in right now, because we can only cover so much of that, right? What I'm interested in is how do you hold up to the pressure, If you take these 7 games, if you head into them with a certain attitude and then something goes right or something goes wrong, how do you respond to it? And that's kind of what I'm interested in. How are your nerves? How's your energy? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's the stuff that I think we can really make the most progress on, because we could teach you 3 new plans in the French defense and then you could get nervous and freak out and it would be pointless, right? Or we can talk about nerves, or what it's like to be on stream, or what it's like to play right after blundering a previous game, right? You might lose one game to a blunder and then the next game we still have to play a good game. So I think some stuff like that is going to be more useful for us.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll try and schedule that for you, and all our friends and supporters on stream right now, you can already start marking that in your heads. I'm going to send out a message to the dojo at some point today, but basically we're looking for some folks to play a tournament with Martin and another tournament with Francisco, either on Thursday or Friday this week. Morning time Pacific, afternoon or midday or afternoon for Francisco, evening for Martin. And yeah, I'll send out a message with some more details, but we'd appreciate everybody who helps us get this practice in. And let's see. Do you have any other questions for me, Francisco, or do you want to do some practice together now?
Yeah, I had one more question that popped into my head. I mean, I think I already know the answer, but just in case it, it just came to me. What happens if at any point? Well, I don't know if I should ask you this on stream, but I mean, yeah, I'll ask it anyway. What happens if at any point one of my opponents during the tournament offers a draw? Like, what do I do in that case?
So normally, if someone offers you a draw, you pretend that they didn't. You just ignore it and keep playing chess. Yeah.
All right.
It just means that they're afraid of losing. Normally. If they don't make a move, well, I don't know if they have to make a move on chess.com to offer a draw. Normally in a tournament...
No, about that I'm not worried. I just meant from the point of view of if you wanted me to consider, this position, maybe, better to, I have no plans or whatever, maybe just take the draw or something, or if you wanted me to just play for the full point all the way. So yeah, you basically answered what I thought you would answer. But just in case, I wanted to ask you because, I mean, normally, I mean, I make those decisions entirely by myself, but here I'm not just playing for myself, so it's
yeah, I mean, to some extent you'll do the best if you make a decision that you're comfortable with, right, versus a decision that I tell you to make. But normally at least your opponent should have to make a move. So I don't know if on chess.com you can offer a draw without making a move, but probably their time keeps running, so I would wait to actually see what move they play, if that's how it works on chess.com. Because a lot of times people offer a draw if they don't know what to do or if they're really uncomfortable with their position. So if you at least wait for them to make a move, you can still accept the draw if they make a good move.
No, I think after someone makes a move, then the draw offer is canceled automatically, I think.
Okay. Anyway, I would at least wait to see a move from your opponent because there's a very good chance it'll be a blunder. Often people actually literally make a blunder while offering a draw. Because they're thinking about should they offer a draw, and they're in an uncomfortable position. They are only thinking about offering a draw because they're afraid of losing, and then they just want to play some kind of move and offer a draw, and they end up playing a bad move. So I would definitely want to see the opponent's move. And I would think the main scenario where you might take a draw would be if you're really low on time yourself and afraid of kind of freaking out or not being able to finish the game. But if you have an equal position and time on the clock, then when your opponent offers a draw, you have to assume that they're uncomfortable, even though it's approximately equal. And yeah, I mean, if for some reason, they have checkmate in one and they offer you a draw, I suppose you could take it. I'm not sure why they...
If I see that, obviously I will take it.
I'm not sure why anybody... would. I mean, yeah, for the most.
No, that's very unlikely to happen. Like the situations where I imagine someone offering me a draw is if they are scared, like you say, but the position might be completely equal. So I mean, sort of like that. Or I mean, obviously, if they are in a worse position, they also might offer me a draw. But in that case, I would refuse naturally. I mean, as long as I know that the position is good for me. But yeah, I mean, I'll just keep it simple and I'll just refuse any draw that they offer me unless I know that I'm losing. In that case, then I will accept it.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. Alrighty. let's
On that note,
let's.
in the tournament yesterday, I had a very funny situation like that.
Mhm.
Like there was a guy that was beating everyone, and when it got my turn to play against him, I didn't even know his rating, but I mean I knew that he was beating everyone. Then he played E4, I played C5, and then he offered a draw, and I took it right away. Like I was like, yeah, this guy's beating everyone, you know. So I just take it. and and yeah, the organizer, like when we called him, like he was like, oh, did something happen? No, draw. And then he was laughing. Like he even took a picture of us and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, it turned out that this guy was 1800 rated. So actually, it was that was excellent for me. He had to go to his grandma's birthday. That's why he left.
Ah, he had a reason.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't tell me the reason when he offered, but I mean, like
Yeah.
that was the reason. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right, let's play. Let's play.
All right.
Wait. Let's go here. Okay. Here, folks, if you want to challenge Francisco, we're looking for 10 minutes plus 2 seconds. Time control. And we're looking for opponents between 1400 and 1800.
Oh, I have Baymon here. He's my nemesis of the internet.
Nice.
So yeah, I'll play against him. Let's
Right
go.
on.
Yeah, I'm in the game. So
Yep. Here we go. I'll mute. Have fun, both of you. Oh, man. We're going to be good at the DE4 French at some point here, right?
okay, getting a sense of deja vu that this is the same thing we had before.
Yeah, it's definitely the same thing they had before.
Okay, here. Oh wait, I already messed up. Oh, no. Like yeah, probably F4 was bad actually, because there's a queen check over there. Okay, go. I don't know. I don't want to go there. Go over here.
Okay, so this position they had exactly before. Still in a previous game of theirs. And I would say that Francisco using some time shows that he's not like super confident about the position he had last time. Why do they play 10 plus 2? That's just the format of the tournament that they're preparing for. You know. That's just the format. I mean, generally speaking, Alan, like for whatever tournaments or competitions you're preparing to play for, it's good to practice the exact time control of the tournament you will eventually be playing in. So if you're preparing for a blitz tournament, it's useful to play blitz games. If you're preparing for a slow tournament, it's useful to play slow games. So far, exact position they had before. Francisco's still using tons of time. Last time he played queen f3, queen c7, queen h3. He got a good position, and then he played a bad move, g4, weakening his king too much on this diagonal. And we talked about how other moves he can consider are f5 and rook ae1 at some point. So let's see where this goes. Beimon playing very quickly towards this position suggests that Beimon was quite happy with the position they got last time around. Yeah, the time control informs like how much time you're supposed to spend on all kinds of different moves. Right? Like, when should you stop and think? When should you play a move quickly? When do you have time to double check or not? And all that. It's just so much of your subconscious calibration of your decision making is based on the time control. So, you know, I've got them just living and breathing 10+2 for now. Okay, so now Beimon's thinking for the first time. Last time they played queen c7, and now they're... Yeah, so they played all the moves that they were confident with, and now thinking about what to do from here. Okay, queen c7 as before, queen h3 as before. Last time Beimon played c5 here, which I would expect again. It's a very plausible move. There it is. Now, will we get a repeat of knight g4, or will we get a new move? Would be either rook ae1 or f5, I think. Those are the other options. Knight g4 was played the first time that they got this position. You can do either, Sweet Blues. There's not a single clear answer to it. It depends partly if you want your opponent to be scared or confident, right? If you act like you're in opening prep, they'll be scared. So they'll play more cautious moves, right? If you act like you're thinking, they'll be more likely to play aggressive moves because they'll be feeling confident. Rook c1 is a mistake that he's made in a similar position once before, Ray. The point is, rook c1, you don't really want to play pawn takes. You're more likely to play pawn takes, bishop takes. So the place to put this rook is on the D or E files, not really on the C file here. Because those are the files that are going to be open. Generally speaking. And even if you took this way, you don't actually want to trade rooks, right? Because you're the one who's worse in the endgame with this isolated pawn. You're playing for the middle game. So even here, you'd rather have your rook be on D1, even if it's a closed file, so you're not trading rooks. And you're still playing for the middle game with F5. Okay, we got to move from black. Bishop e4, cutting out the key attacker. Very nice play from Beimon. You're very welcome, Valgry. Okay, so white wants to keep this bishop, and honestly, you should play a move like bishop a6 or bishop e2, something to keep the bishop on the board. Bishop b5, bishop f1. There's a lot of choices. Keeps the bishop. Nice. No! Wait, you're just wasting time? What? I don't understand that at all. Yeah. We gotta say, if you don't know what to do, at least put this rook in the middle of the board in future games. But you can see how it's kind of like useless to teach people like a lot of chess ideas and themes during such a short compressed period of time of a couple weeks. Like I mentioned to him, like maybe bring your rook out, but on his own he's just, still swimming around in circles. So the most important stuff is stuff about when to think and how to be tough if you think the position is going against you, and how to stay sober when you think you're winning and keep double checking and being careful. That's the stuff that has more of a chance of sticking. I could mention the rook on a1 a few more times. I don't know if it would come out. Beamon's playing, simple, clean, natural moves, right? You see the benefit of being in a system that you're really comfortable with, right? This idea of queen here, fighting for the diagonal, because Beamon probably thought of bishop f3, queen f3, and White's queen kind of gets this diagonal. Beamon's very comfortable here, right? Developing both rooks to the correct files for black, putting the queen on the diagonal nicely, cutting out White's attacking potential with this new move, bishop e4. Okay, there comes the rook off a1. Woo! Now, do we want to trade one rook or play bishop d4? Probably trade one rook, because we're liable to have this piece undefended. Our rooks are disconnected. We don't want to get into trouble on the file. This is going to be the safer move in this context. Absolutely, Foos. Rook a1 and f5. We want to think about things like keeping time for the endgame, not spending too much time on moves that are not tactical win-loss moves. Right? These moves have gone slightly against White, but nothing where White's losing a piece. So ideally, White would have played a little bit faster, right? Have maybe more like 5 to 6 minutes here. Just a little bit. I mean, we're at 4:45, right? So 5 minutes wouldn't be that different, but 5 to 6 minutes maybe. Because these moves are not game deciding. Okay, looking for some trades. So you can either take or play here. It looks like we had a quick move prepared. That is great. Really good to see that he predicted bishop c5. That is really, really good. Really good. Oh, I need a lot of things, Scotty. I need a nap, a swim, and a meal. I'm skipping all of them for this tournament. Skipping everything. Suppose I could do some physical therapy under the table while watching chess. But you can see it in my face if I'm doing the physical therapy. Whew. About as much as I can take. Queen, bring the queen back in from the side. Yeah. So now basically you can start to see we're going to get an endgame where neither player is up a pawn, right? So it's going to be within the range of equal, right? Plus or minus 0.5, right? But it's going to be somewhere around a very small advantage for white or black. So it's very important that we've kept some time on the clock here, right? So very, very important. A couple quick moves from Francisco. He doesn't overcommit to a kingside attack. He re-centralizes his piece. You know, nothing stupid like knight f3, knight g5, still trying to checkmate. No. Pieces are going to get traded around d4, so let's bring the queen back into the game, right? And we're going to get queen f3, knight f3. The bishops will trade at some point, rook in the middle, and just play this endgame and have some time on the clock to play the endgame. We might not take a draw, but we're gonna play the endgame with a couple minutes left on the clock. Now, this game's going towards an endgame faster than normal, so we're going to have some time, even though a few moves were played slowly. But just to give you a sense, if we got this position here as white, I would want Francisco to have at least 3 minutes on the clock when he gets here, right? And that's looking like very plausible right now. Right now, I don't need any equipment foos. I just need to practice moving this poor ankle. Bishop d4 check. Rook takes. No problem. Now against queen f3, that would blunder rook d8.
Oh my god, what a stupid blunder.
What? What's the stupid blunder?
Well, some people don't call it a blunder when it's missing something, but yeah, hanging queen and... Oh no, that was a check, never mind.
He's in check.
Okay. Good for me. I didn't see it was a check. I actually thought it was a capture.
So now he needs to get control of himself and notice this possibility.
Forgot about the queen. Luckily for me, it was not.
There's a big opportunity to win the game.
Okay.
Also, there's a big opportunity to blunder and lose the game. Queen b7, queen b7, rook d8, check, knight e8, and you don't get enough for the queen. So.
Okay, takes here.
He's thinking about trading on d8 and then knight c6. No, but check on d1, yeah.
Well, I can simplify everything into an endgame, but I don't think that would be a wise idea considering I'm up on the clock. So I can go over here. Let me get in with my queen. That's a little bit more like it. I think I'm going to do just that. Huh? Oh, hello. Okay, but I can't right now.
If he didn't have knight c6,
oh, wait, but that's also...
his best move might be something like h3. Because if you play this kind of an endgame at some point, you'd have an advantage for white with the active pieces, except that this is immediately saving for black, I think. Okay, he's played a move. Let's see what it was. Found knight c6. Oh, look at that. I didn't actually think he'd find it, even though it's simple, because he didn't see it immediately, and then he got distracted in the background, right? And when you get distracted and your thought process gets broken off, normally you come back and you're disjointed and you just go back to your previous idea. You don't really think much. But here, yeah, he found it. So that's good for him. And from Beimo's perspective, in this position, Beimo needed to trade queens first before making the trade on d4. Because the trade on d4, Beimo couldn't trade queens anymore because of rook d8, right? So Beimo kind of released this tension in a way that helped Francisco. Here, I would say queen f3 first, and this position should be nice for black. Perfectly nice.
takes. Wait, isn't that back rank mate? Oh no, because it's been okay. But I can take over here. It takes over there.
Good move from Baemon to avoid the worst there. White
Okay,
can't
nothing wrong with
deliver back rank mate because of this. That's very nice. But there might be b4 after rook d8. So we'll see what Francisco finds. Yeah, safety move. Trade it all off. Yeah, it's a very, very safe approach to this. And now you want to go after the A pawn with the rook. Okay, Baemon's going to force him to show some endgame skills. I think Francisco's like assuming he's got this, but Baemon's going to show us some practical skills here and make it tough. All these pawn moves on the king side are not really great for white. Here you could get excited about f5, pawn takes, rook d5, but f5's pointless if black just moves the king. You know, you're just trading off pawns, making the game more and more of a draw. And you're playing on the side where black's got more pawns, so they can more easily fight off everything you do. This is where white had chances. The black king was on h7. This is the right kind of idea, getting space for the rook. a7 was a good target, but now the rook's kind of constrained compared to going rook d8 to a8. Oh, yeah, nice move, trying to find some space for the rook. Yeah. I mean, as you can see, there's no easy immediate wins for white. So Baemon is still stretching his skills here by playing this out. There, black can play a4 to freeze white's queenside pawns, right? When you play a3, black can just freeze you. So, gotta be more careful. There's another pawn traded. Black's getting closer and closer to a draw, by the way. And there we go. Brilliant move. Saved the game. All on the increment. Super toughness from Baemon. That's what we like to see. Yeah, and he just keeps his rook sitting around like a dummy in the center here. The rook wants to get some more distance, you know, do things like here, here, here. Look what you can do with some distance, you know. But people either do or don't know how to use certain pieces in the endgame, right? So. Clearing the way for the g-pawn. But the king was fine here. You can start moving the g-pawn with the king here.
Okay, not a perfect game, but well.
So he pushed you to the limit. He showed you that toughness.
Yeah, he did. He did.
He showed you that toughness defending that
Yeah.
endgame. Very good. Something for us to take from him, and apply ourselves in our own games, right? Like, you're down a bit of material. Your opponent trades off your queen because of the back rank. There's nothing... In a sense, there's no hope for him. And yet... And he had like 5 seconds and you had 2 minutes or 3 minutes to play the endgame. In a sense, there's no hope. But he just... Boom. Just kept going in the hopeless position until eventually there is some hope. What's the hope? The hope is the opponent gets tired or the opponent doesn't know the exact technique for a certain kind of endgame. You never know which endgames are winning for your opponent. They might be winning to a computer, but are they winning to our opponent, right? And he just hung around there. He never did anything too wild. He didn't go on some counterattack because he knew he was worse. He just, kept the knight in the middle, brought his king back towards the middle gradually, and it just got harder and harder and harder for you to try to win the endgame. So super, super from Baymon.
Yeah, good stuff.
There was a moment, I think, where you could have maybe had a tactic with b4 when the queen was on c5. Let me see if I can figure it out. Move 25 was knight takes d8, rook takes d8, and then on move 26...
Move 25. Let's see. Move 25. What?
So you've just...
Did you already say the tactic?
Yeah, move 25, you play knight d8, rook d8. And here you played queen f2 to trade things down. But there's a move that would save you from playing out the endgame.
Let's see. Yeah, I didn't even look much around here. I was already trying to put pressure on the clock here. Let's see. Oh, okay. B4 and he can't keep the pin, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So you were putting pressure on his clock, which was great. There were a lot of moves there you played in the middle game that were nice and quick. I was really impressed. Like, you recognized that you weren't going to be able to finish the game off with a kingside attack, and you just sort of brought all your pieces to sort of defend/trade in the middle of the board, right? And that way you got to the end game with a time lead, right? So that was great. And you noticed knight c6 opportunity, so then you also had a material advantage. So a lot of that stuff went really, really well. But yeah, sometimes if we play some fast moves, we might miss an opportunity. And b4 was a nice kill.
Yeah. That'd be nice.
Okay, we've got time for one more, I think, before I go pick up the kids.
All right.
So if anyone else wants to play.
Yeah, I received the...
Here we are.
Okay, there's an 1834, so a little bit out of range.
Okay.
Do you want me to accept this challenge anyway?
No, let's see if we can get someone between 14 and 1800 for now. Here's a link for anyone who wants to.
Okay, here is emergence. Okay, yeah, I got one.
Great.
I'm already in the game.
Muting it, and here we go. Rui Lopez. Great to see all the dojoers coming out, giving this great practice. Beautiful. Thank you, Emergence. Thank you, Baymon. So Francisco seems comfortable with the first few moves of this Ruy Lopez here. Okay, complicated from black. White could maybe take on f7. Francisco still playing pretty quickly. He seems to be confident. Is he going to go for this pawn, or is he going to try and win the knight with f3 next move? See, there's an interesting option here. You could, if you're unfamiliar here, you could definitely stop and think for white, because there's this possibility here with queen d4 is one interesting option. You know, it's messy. And then there's this idea of knight d4 and maybe trying to win the knight, which is important too. I could see myself stopping for a minute here as white to try and pick between my options of, you know, knight d4, knight e5, bishop f7, rook e1. So all these moves, you can play them in different orders as well, right? Like you could play knight e5, and then if they take here, maybe queen d5 is some surprisingly good move, you know? So I could imagine thinking for a minute here in a game. On the other hand, Francisco may have seen this before. You know, he may already know that this rook e1 move is very good here. I think a thing for white to watch out for is this bishop possibly getting trapped like this. Wait a minute. What if this were even easier than rook e1? Huh. f3. Okay. So bishop here, looking either for d3 at some point or just defending the pawn. But the nice thing from white's perspective is now I'm not worrying about my bishop getting trapped as fast. And yeah, he doesn't worry about d3 check. He can then play king h1 or bishop e3. Just takes, castles, and I imagine he'll also take this pawn with bishop or with pawn. Could also maybe play king h1 now, but you know, pawns are worth something. Maybe just take with the bishop, attack the rook, right? Why not? Bishop's pretty solid on d5. Definitely, you know, he should be taking a little bit of time on these moves because the game is, you know, very important stuff is happening here in the game. Good. I'm happy with how much time he spent on this move now. Ooh, and blockading the d pawn. And he had a follow-up. Yeah, great. Bishop b7. Yeah, trading won't make white cry. And developing. Nice. Okay, very comfortable here. The main thing that I see that could go wrong for white would be black still playing c5, c4, getting an area where they're strong. So I would like to see white set up the pieces so that doesn't like surprisingly flow over them. That's why I'm a little worried about like knight b3. You might think it's with tempo, but then what's your plan against c5, c4, right? So Francisco just brought the knight here, right? There's another piece on the king side where you don't have that much pawn cover. The knight's safe here, you know, and all the pieces can come out. So I really like that direction. A lot of people would be seduced by the tempo, right? On the move d5, knight c3 instead of f3. Right here, knight c3. Well, knight c3 is playable, GM Sharky, yeah, but f3 wins this knight for a pawn. Your move knight c3, it's not going to win more than a full piece, is it? Knight c3 looks very playable, but you're not going to win more than a piece off of that move. You think it's theory? No, this is not theory. Black's blundered. We're out of theory. This is not opening theory. This is just calculate, find the best move. I mean, because look, white had this move, last move, instead of rook e1. There's nothing theory about this. This is just game winning for white immediately. I think bishop d5 might have been slightly better than rook e1. But in either case, white's winning a full piece, so it's not theory. Love this knight f3. Love the bishop coming out. Good practical play from Francisco. Yeah, you're remembering a similar position that's different. I think I just demonstrated 100% proof that that was not proper opening theory. I even know what position you might be thinking of. There's a very famous fancy line like this in a Scotch gambit or a certain kind of Italian, where you castle, they go knight e4, you play rook e1, they play d5, and in this position here, there's the move knight c3, or there's the move bishop takes d5, queen d5 is the only way to defend the knight, and now knight c3. This is a famous line, actually playable for both sides, despite how wild and sharp the moves look. But here, white can't win a piece with f3 because there's a knight on f3. It's different than our game. Bishop f4, queen f6. Solid. Now there's bishop h4 maybe to win more material, actually, as a little opportunity here for white. Or they could continue developing if they don't notice it. Noticed. Okay. You seemed comfortable with the opening. And used your time pretty well, I would say.
All right.
Yeah.
That's an improvement.
I also really like that you moved your knight to f3 instead of b3. I know you're already up a piece, so to some extent, the differences between the moves might seem small. But the only thing that could really go against you in the position up a piece that I thought of, or at least in the short term, would be black could retreat the bishop and play c5, c4, and become very strong right in that area. So if you put your knight on b3, a lot of people...
Black could play what, sorry? You cut out...
Oh, sorry. I'm saying there could be a plan for black to play c5, c4 with the c-pawn.
Yeah, I thought about that.
Yeah.
I thought they might go like something like, I don't know, bishop b4 at some point, and then try to push the...
And then try to push the pawn.
Or something.
In the short term, that's the only thing that can kind of go wrong for you. It's the closest thing there is to a danger in this position where you're up a piece and there's not really too much else going on. A lot of people would be tempted to play knight b3 because they think they're winning a tempo on the bishop on c5. But actually the knight on b3 is just...
Yeah, actually I thought about that move, but then I thought, yeah, I mean, they are going to move the bishop and that's it. And then I don't have this knight that could be a defender on the king side. You know,
yeah.
If I move it to f3.
So it's much better to just bring another piece towards the king side, where if you had to pick a side of the board where you were eventually going to attack and use your extra knight to win, the king side makes more sense than the queen side. On the queen side, you're down a pawn, and on the king side, there are both kings. So moving the knight towards the king side was one of the better moves I've seen in these sessions. So that was very nice to see that. But just in general, I mean, yeah, it's a very clean game. Bravo. Okay, so the next steps are for me to set up a tournament for you on Thursday or Friday. It'll last probably 2.5 to 3 hours is my guess.
Okay.
We'll find you 7 opponents. And your time is pretty flexible. Is it okay if it starts a little earlier than our lessons normally do?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. So when we play the eventual tournaments on chess.com, I think the tournaments all start at 8 a.m. Pacific.
Pacific is the same time zone
Is
as
my
yours,
time
right?
zone, right? And I think you're 4 hours
Okay.
after me, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah.
Like, I think
That's correct.
I think 8 a.m. Pacific
So at
means
12 p.m. here.
that eventually the tournament will be at 12 for you. So my thought would be, let's try and make as many things exactly like the tournament for you as possible. So let's have your practice tournament at 8 a.m.
All right.
That
Sounds
will
good.
already give you a sense of like, well, on the day of the tournament, when are you going to eat your lunch, right? Or are you gonna have or are you gonna have snacks or water, or what are you gonna do to stay in good shape from noon until maybe 3 p.m. And chess.com shows often have some little thing go wrong, and you end up sitting around for half an hour, and you have to know how to stay loose and focused at the same time, like ready to go, but not tiring yourself out. Somebody else's internet might die or their camera might die, and chess.com might be waiting for their camera for fair play reasons or whatever, and you're just kind of sitting around. So we just have to be ready for whatever might happen in that way. Maybe I'll pop in and disrupt your tournament just to make it feel like the real thing. I'll pop in and be like, "Oh, no, we have a technical delay." So yeah, we'll see. But let's try and make it as much like normal as possible, so you can already think about, do you want to eat lunch at 10 o'clock, or eat half of a lunch at 11 o'clock, or eat your lunch while you're playing the tournament? I don't know what works best for you, but you have to think about that a little bit. And then we get a practice run. So I'll find some opponents for you. It'll be either Thursday or Friday. I'll send out a message right now. I'll go onto the dojo server and start gathering opponents for you. I imagine there's a good chance that your new nemesis, Baemon, will show up. So you can get ready for that French. And then I'll send you the details and some pairings and stuff.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, so let's end 10 minutes early since we don't have time for another...
sorry.
Since we don't have time for another game, maybe we'll just end 10 minutes early, and I'll go send some messages and start working on setting up the tournaments.
Okay, yeah. One question I wanted to ask you also. Before you said 2 days before the event, not do anything just related, right? Just chill, basically.
Or mostly chill, maybe half an hour or something like that to stay sharp, but mostly chill. Yeah.
Half an hour of what? Of tactics?
It could be either half an hour of tactics or one practice game, something like that. Same thing on the day of the tournament. Right. If you wanted to, you could maybe play one game that morning, because you sometimes play badly your first game of a tournament or of a day. So I
thought about that. I mean, I don't know if playing a game, but maybe do some tactics or something before the event.
If you want to.
Could help maybe.
I often do really badly in my first and last game of every tournament, and then all the intermediate rounds I play well. So I came up with a trick for myself where maybe the day before the tournament I play one terrible practice game, and then when I get to the tournament it's round 2 for me instead of round 1. So you could definitely play one game the morning of the tournament. You could practice that this week and see if it's good for you or not, right? Because one game won't really tire you out, especially if you play it 2 hours before the tournament or something. I don't know. You could experiment with it. Just play one game, sort of be sharp, be warmed up in a little way. But the important thing is not to be exhausted when you get to the tournament, right? So generally the last 1 to 2 days before a tournament, we really do much lighter practice.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So yeah, thank you very much for the lesson, and I'll see you on the next one.
All right. Cheers,
thanks
Francisco.
For the challenges.
Yeah.
Cheers.
All right, folks. I'm going to take off for an hour, and we'll be back in about an hour with Cash for another lesson. Okay, so we'll send another quick raid and then come back in an hour. Oh, looks like Matt is on. Yeah. Rage Angel is on too. Maybe they're streaming together. Maya game recaps. Can we improve? I don't know. All right. All right. Cheers, folks. See you soon.